Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Adriana Popescu. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, an addiction and trauma specialist, and an empowerment coach based out of San Francisco, California. And I wanted to create this video series as part of my group healing practice called Firebird Healing, where we specialize in treating trauma. And wanted to create a video series that would offer people some inspiration, some hope, to help people feel like they're not alone in their struggles and challenges, and to offer practical tools and real life stories of people who have successfully overcome trauma, have been like that phoenix bird rising from the ashes, which is our logo and one of my favorite symbols. So I thought I'd kick off the series by sharing with you a little bit about my own story. I definitely had some struggles and traumas early on and was the recipient of a lot of intergenerational trauma. I had family my whole family came from Romania, which was a country that was never independent for very long. It passed hands through a number of different empires. And even in World War II, when my parents were actually young children, it went back and forth between Axis and Allied powers, ultimately ending up becoming communist, where my parents would live there for 16 years under a very strict authoritarian communist rule under Ceausescu, and they endured a lot with both the war and with their time in a very challenging experience living under that rule. They had managed to escape Romania, come to Canada, and later come to the United States, where I was fortunate enough to be born in the States. But because of the experiences that my parents had gone through, and that some of the things their parents had gone through, and keep going back through generations, I definitely had a rough time early on. There was a lot of conflict in my home. There was some violence, and there was a lot of anger and fighting, leading to a very difficult and messy divorce when I was about 8 years old. My father became very sick when I was 15 and died rather quickly of cancer. There were a lot of early life things, that I went through, challenges at school, some health things, car accident, and other traumatic experiences, being stung by a hive of bees, all kinds of different things like that. But it really wasn't until my early 20s that it all kind of came to a head when I became extremely ill. I had been living in Vail, Colorado after completing college, and was taking a year off before graduate school. I knew I wanted to go into psychology to actually become a therapist and help people who had struggled with some of the things that I had struggled with. But I never had anyone there to talk with. I was always the first kid that these things happened to. None of my friends could relate to what was going on. And then later, as these things started happening to them, their parents were getting divorced, or maybe they had a parent who became ill or passed away. They would come to me for support and advice and things like that. So, becoming a therapist was a natural next step, but I wanted a break before grad school. And in my time in Colorado, I ended up getting really, really sick, and doctors couldn't figure out what was going on with me. Um, it actually took them 13 years to figure out that what I had going on was Lyme disease, along with chronic fatigue syndrome, which comes with a whole host of co-infections that I had, and all kinds of other debilitating issues like becoming allergic to everything in your environment, heavy metal toxicity, the chronic fatigue, all these different issues that I was really struggling with. And I became really dysfunctional and extremely depressed. It was truly what I would call a dark night of the soul. And prior to this, I was this pretty intellectual kid, very much in my head, a real thinker, head tripper. Wasn't super connected to my body, wasn't really spiritually connected as well. And my journey to health and wellness, which was really one I had to forge myself because doctors in Western medicine really had very little to offer me, really ended up becoming a journey of a spiritual journey, going through the dark night of the soul, because I felt really, gosh, as someone who was very type A and had managed to be very successful throughout my life and had overcome those earlier life traumas to be, in this condition where I was so physically debilitated, I couldn't even like lift my head out of bed. I had to give my cat away because I was so allergic to him. I couldn't be outside for more than 5 minutes before having a massive allergy attack. By the time that I got to graduate school here in California, I had to lay on the floor in class, because I just couldn't keep my head up. It was very hard to get through all that. But what I discovered along the way were these amazing tools from that I would call more holistic physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual tools. I definitely chose a more holistic psychology program where I learned about transpersonal psychology and spirituality and studied Eastern traditions. I started receiving treatments like chiropractic and acupuncture, and then it moved into the realm of energy work and energy psychology and learning things like EFT tapping and Be Set Free Fast and NET, neuro emotional technique. And what I found was that as I would work with these different practitioners and especially do the work on the early life trauma, because I thought, well, as long as I'm not thinking about it, move on, right? It's in the past, move on, and no big deal. What I didn't know at the time was that trauma actually gets locked in our bodies. And a lot of those early life experiences I had actually had made it so that my body was very debilitated. And in addition to actually having been bitten by a tick that gave me this, bacterial condition and all these co-infections. But my body was not resilient to begin with because of the trauma I had experienced early in life and some of the intergenerational trauma I had inherited. So as I learned about these different modalities, as I began healing my own body, mind, heart, and spirit, I started feeling better. It took about 17 years. But in that time, I learned a tremendous amount about myself. I learned a tremendous amount about these, wonderful healing modalities, many of which are rooted in 5,000 years of traditional Chinese medicine or traditional Indian medicine, very cross cultural healing modalities. I studied shamanism. I mean, there were many, many pieces and many, many practitioners I worked with that made me an expert in these areas, because then I began to study and I began to use these tools with clients. And what I can say in retrospect is I wouldn't trade any of it because it has made me the powerful healer that I am today. I know that if I can heal myself from a condition that's supposedly incurable and be happier and healthier now than I ever was in the past, I know that there are infinite possibilities available. And so now that's really the mission I'm on, is to educate people and empower them with tools like this to overcome whatever obstacles are in their way to creating a life of infinite possibilities. And if I had known that then, back in my darkest hours, when I was so miserable, like crying in pain and trying to numb the pain with drugs and alcohol and all these other things that didn't work. I wish I would have known then what I know now, and I would have told my younger self, "Hey, you're going to get through this. You have the resilience to get through this. You have the drive, but also there are tools out there that can really, really help you recover from this, but you can't do it alone." And that also I needed to hear. I thought I was some kind of superwoman. I had been fiercely independent. I had to get through things at a young age by myself. There wasn't anyone there really for me. So I learned a valuable lesson in asking for help and receiving it. And that's such a huge piece of my learning still today. So know that healing is possible, but you need support. And we are social creatures and we're meant to be connected with one another. But when you've been through traumatic experiences, often you feel cut off from others or you don't trust people. I certainly didn't. So that was a valuable learning along the way as well. But, what I have found both in working on myself, working with thousands of other people at this point, with all kinds of really painful traumatic experiences, with addiction, with chronic, health conditions, I've seen miracles and I do see miracles every day. please do know that healing is possible. You can be like that phoenix bird rising from the ashes, and please reach out for support and the tools and the techniques, because they will help if you are willing to take that deep look and really dig in deep to your own shadow material, the stuff you maybe haven't wanted to look at. The answers usually lie there. If you're willing to challenge limiting beliefs that have come from traumatic experiences, you can change those. You can change the way you see yourself in the world, and you can rise like the phoenix bird from the ashes. So I hope this story has been an inspiration. If you have a story of triumphing over trauma, or know somebody who does, who'd be willing to share it in this video format, please don't hesitate to reach out at adrianapopescu.org or firebird-healing.com, or anywhere on the socials where you can find me. Thank you.